Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the League of Inches podcast grand final review show. So that is it. The season has come to an end. Probably expect me to say so as the podcast, but that's not the case. We will continue to bring you a few videos to come in the off season, so you'll be listening and hearing from us and watching us throughout the off season. Do not worry about that. But we're here to talk about the grand final. Predicted it to be one for the ages. We'll discuss early on if we did think that was the case, or if it felt perhaps a little bit short, and reasons why to that. But what it was an absolute two beasts just going at it, I felt like, in my opinion. And it was obviously the Panthers getting over the Melbourne Storm 14 points to 6. I am very grateful that this man has showed his face onto the podcast. He is, as his little title says, he's gutted. For those not watching on YouTube, he's gutted, and that is Trav, obviously the Storm fan of the page. Trav, appreciate you joining us, brother. I'd take myself back to 2 years ago, and it was very, very tough. And I don't know, I think I actually stopped doing the page for a couple of weeks after it, but that was just me. And I actually stopped beforehand as I was just too into it. But how are you feeling? Let's talk about you first, and then after that, get into this game side of things and how you felt and seen the game initially.
I tried to get off the podcast tonight. You wouldn't let me.
You did.
Look, I'm gutted.
To be fair, the page is much bigger now, so I wouldn't be able to do it either. I'd have to come and show my face.
I'm gutted. I'm disappointed. I'm a loyal fan. It is what it is. Like that's what it is. We lost the grand final. I walked into this going, anything could happen. I think we said that on the preview. Anything could happen. I didn't expect the Storm to win, but I kind of thought we would. I thought, we this was our game to get. It didn't happen. We'll analyze that later, but so I'm gutted, but hey, it's a long weekend up here in Queensland and the weather's been hot. So it's, I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. It is what it is.
Yeah, I've had the aircon pumping. It was, especially yesterday, grand final day, it was a swelter. And today, pretty similar conditions I can report. But let's initially talk about this. The grand final, do we think that was a swelter? Do we think that lived up to, I guess, the pre-game billing? I know we were both really looking forward to this grand final and said it'd be right up there in terms of one of the all-time grand finals. Did it live up to that for you? And please explain whatever way you go.
No, I don't think it lived up to being an all-time great game, which I thought we would have. I thought we did say two powerhouses ready to go at it. But I will say that it was probably one of the best defensive displays from two teams that I've ever seen. Two teams defensively going at it for an entire game. Only that just slight moments broke the backs of the Storm, which is what Penrith ended up winning by. But, the fact is you had two, pretty good offensive teams who are capable of putting points on the board, but also known for just grinding out games. I can't remember in my, life of watching NRL a display of defenses and the dominance of the defensive games in last night that I've seen in ever. So, whilst I don't think it was one of the games of the ages, I don't think people are going to be recording that and sitting in the background for a long time. Like potentially you could have done last year's game was probably a much more entertaining game than what last night's was. But I really enjoyed the defensive side of it. And name me a defensive game that was better than that.
I agree with you. I think it's sort of I feel like it came around the worst time possible for these two teams going at it and in the way that they play the football, because of last year's grand final and how epic that was and how exciting it was and how many moments it had. This one sort of didn't have the moments as such, but what it had and what I felt as like a rugby league purist was it just had real hard at it, grinding type footy that it was almost the first to blink. And that's what happened pretty much every time there was a try. It was a good move. It was a defensive error. There was those sorts of players that got points, and we probably didn't think anything less for this game. What we probably did think, and looking at the game in our preview and stuff, we probably thought some of these individual players would have more of a role where they probably didn't. And some of them, whether or not they had their quieter game of the year, I don't really buy that anymore, because the grand final's a different beast. And it's what it is. It's 17 players from both teams going at it at the peak of their game as they get to the grand final. I don't think anyone sort of goes away from their game. Like, I've heard people today talk about Hughes saying it was his worst game of the year and he sort of went a bit quiet and stuff. But I think that's also credit to the game and credit to the Panthers, their defense. And as you said, credit to, I thought Cleary, like, he was everywhere. He was busy, but he didn't have those moments either because the Storm's defense was so good. A big part of that, before we get too much more into the player side of things, the officiating. I know I'm going to say this first before people try and crucify you in terms of going, oh, he's blaming the rest, blah, blah, blah. I know for one thing, Trav will not be blaming the rest. I've spoken to him a number of times throughout today and yesterday. He has definitely copped the loss on the chin. He has owned the fact that Penrith are probably the better side for a lot of that game. Not all of it. I'll talk about that at some point shortly. But for mine, Ashley Klein was never the best referee in the game at any point of time this year. Why he got the officiating for this job, I'll never know. Go back if you haven't already and listen to our preview, and we were really concerned about this appointment because he has shown time and time again he cannot handle these sorts of games. And I thought that first 15-minute period was absolutely disgusting refereeing because he basically let everything go. And most people would sit back and go, oh, that's good. They just went at it. But what it meant was the ruck was so slow. It was just it was one of those games where you could tell, especially the Storm, anytime they got a chance to like have a tap or something, it was done at rapid lightning. Like they were so trying to be so quick. And because the refereeing allowed this game to be so slow, it meant the ruck was taking like 2 or 3 seconds each time, laying around on each other, just wrestling. Like we could have watched that was it Bad Blood yesterday at WWE? Like we could have watched that if we want to watch wrestling. Like I just think Ashley Kine really took away from this game. And we mentioned last year's game and how good it was refereed by Adam G. He did let it go, but what he did was make sure the wrestle wasn't happening, and he gave a few of those early sorts of penalties and stuff last year. Ashley Klein should have done the same thing in this one, and it would have been, I felt like, a lot more of an open sort of game. What we got after that 10, 15-minute period where it was allowed, basically, we just got that absolute war, which isn't bad. We're not saying it's a bad thing, but it is in terms of the style of the game that we ended up seeing, and it just shows to me, I want the NRL to explain it at some point in the next week or so. What happened with this appointment? What happened to Adam G all of a sudden, who 6 to 12 months ago was head and shoulders the best referee in the game? And then as rugby league fans yesterday, we had to sit through that. Trav, what about your thoughts on the officiating? I know that you've got some things you want to mention which will help us get into our chat as well.
Yeah, I'll preface this entire podcast on the fact that, and back off what you said, is that I don't blame the refs for our loss. Penrith were the better team, and the statistics prove that. What I'm pissed off about, and what I'm gutted about, is that the officiating was so poor that it didn't actually allow us in key moments in time. And you want to talk about this moments of games and moments in time. What it did was it didn't allow us to build the momentum. It didn't allow us to have those moments in time where we could then change the momentum from them and use that for our own backing. What it didn't allow us was the opportunity to play a game style that we wanted to play, or even Penrith really wanted to play too. I think the officiating was garbage, and we called it in the preview, and we've actually called it. To be honest, I went back over the last week or so and watched and redid our all of our previews and reviews, and at points in time we've spoken about the officiating of the final periods and the games and the inconsistency. Yesterday's game was so inconsistent compared to any of the finals games. It was atrocious. And I call on like what you said, and I'd love to be there when they do that, to explain what the hell happened, because I think I said it, or if I didn't, it was you, but I know one of us did in the preview, that we know what these two teams are like. We know what these two teams can do. And it pisses off the purists and it pisses off the fans, but it pisses them off mostly because their teams don't do it just as good or better or keep up with them. And surely they sat there in that since the Saturday night when Penrith won that game, or even Sunday morning, let them have a sleep Saturday night, and had Sunday morning, they woke up and went, right, we know what we've got here. What we know what's going to happen. This is what we need to do. This is how we're going to officiate. And then we got that rubbish. Not only did we get that rubbish, but we got the rubbish that happened in the bunker, right? Now, I don't buy into the whole, I don't know how to say this because I've only just thought about it, but I don't buy into the whole Aikens and Klein and their Penrith backgrounds, and Dad played for Penrith and Klein's grown up with Penrith. Like, they've got to come from somewhere. Right. And where that rugby is a game of rugby league, particularly, is really, it's confined to a couple of states. You know, it's played in the other states, but you know, the big where we're going to get most at this point in time, where we get most of our juniors from, where we particularly get all our officiators and referees and all sorts of things from, is from those pockets, right? That's naturally, that's what happens. That's what has to happen in rugby league. It's not like AFL. It's not like basketball, where literally it's everywhere. Rugby league is pockets of spots, and done really bloody well to get to the quality that we get. It's done really well. So I don't buy into that, but I have to ask the question, how does Butler, was it Butler that was the, I'm pretty sure it's Butler that was, he was the name. Now, he made a wrong decision last week, and Cleary went out and said, I don't want him. And it's known, it's a known fact. So who do they get? They get Aiken. Aiken's got the Penrith backing. You know, so whilst I don't buy into it, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me, right? It doesn't make sense. There is no way Ashley Klein is the best referee in this competition. It's just not there. Now, he might be an okay ref and he keeps getting Origin games, and that's a whole different game. That's a whole different level, and that's another argument. But yeah, that was just, to me yesterday, the first 15 minutes was ugly, and we sat there and we looked at it and we all go, you know, defensive powerhouse, and that's what it was. But that's clearly what they wanted to do, right? And the narrative that they wanted at this game is that's what they wanted. And I feel like, unfortunately, there's too much of a narrative that the NRL and the officiating and all that wanted to play in last night's game, instead of just letting two beasts go at it, right? There's just, to me, there's just too much narratives instead of that. And I'm pissed off about it because, you know, I'll take away my Storm hat and try and be unbiased, which I feel like, and I pride myself on these podcasts as being a Storm fan, but I am unbiased. I pride myself on that. Like, as a neutral person, I'd have been pissed off, like, to watch that and see. And I've read lots and lots of comments and done and have seen that too. It's disappointing that that's what they decided to put up on a grand final on the biggest stage. You know, yeah. That's probably where I'll leave it at that, because I think if I go too much more, I'll end up getting backlash. But yeah, that was where that's me.
And I think that's why we go back and we say some of these key attacking spine sort of players were quiet last night, because that's how the game ended up being. And it sort of made sure that they weren't involved. Like one play that Pappy actually got to go down the short side, tested like a 2-on-1 short side play. They made a break off it. It looked dangerous, and it wasn't able to. And as I said, a lot of that is down to the Penrith defense. We're going to give credit for that. But it's also down to how that game, I think, started yesterday, and why no one has really said so far it isn't up there with one of the greats, when if you look at both teams on paper and how they were this year, it should have been a great. It really should have been. I think that's what's a bit gutting for all us rugby league fans, is that we didn't really get that game that we wanted in the end. But let's talk about the other big moment before we get into dissecting, I guess, the game in and out, and the players. This no try, whatever the hell you want to call it, this at the moment. Look, last night, obviously a photo ran around social media. Every single man and his dog has seen this photo, and it looked pure to me that it was a try. I'll say that right now. We did see a video today somewhat circling, which apparently is what footage the bunker got to see. which suggests it is a no try. There's an arm underneath it, but we never got to see that in real time. And until it seemed to have sort of suited and helped make the argument that it was the right decision. That's all well and good. I'm happy to go and say, you know what, let's just sit on the no try. It's a no try, arms on the ball, whatever. What I'm pissed off about is we've got this technology to use, and apparently they're using it. Why aren't we seeing all these camera angles live on air watching the games? Because it would absolutely demolish all of the conversations that has happened over the last almost 24 hours now. It's like, in a way, the NRL loves it, that they love being the center of attention when any sort of dramas around. The NRL needs to put their foot into it. There was no need for it. If the bunker has this capability of seeing this camera angle, give the license to Fox, give it to Channel 9, give it to all those to say, this is another angle that we get to see. This is exactly the angle we're using to come up with this decision of no try or try, whatever it was. Here it is. And that will just stop everything, because I think if we seen that angle from the start, I think 99% of people would have gone, all right, they've gone up as a no try. That looks like an arm under the ball. No try. Let's play on. It just seems to have been such an over-dramatized event now, when the NRL is basically sitting there dealing to themselves going, oh, they don't see this angle that we've got. It pisses me off, because it's a grand final. We've got the best of the best and spent all this money on this technology, and it feels like, in a way, we're still not using it.
Yeah, it's piss poor, isn't it? Hey, so look, I'll take a step back. Here's some really silly questions, but answer them. Just humor me, please. What year are we in?
2024.
And what was the date yesterday?
The 8th of the 10th, 2024. Oh, sorry, the 6th. So we haven't gone forward to the 6th.
Now, that's a good 3/4 of the way through the year, of 2024. Yep. Yeah. Yet we sat there and watched Channel 9 last night in a game that wasn't streamed or wasn't produced as high definition. So there's one thing. So that's just disgusting. That's fucking sorry. Sorry, you're going to have to bleep that out. But that's pathetic, man. Like, as you said, 2024, and we're 3/4 of the way through 2024. And there's an option to put it on to, if you're a Foxtel subscriber during the year, you can watch it it's automatically high def on channel 502, and every now and then they've got it on 591 as the 4K high definition, right? Which is streamed as the Fox Sports with the commentators. But I think it's actually, if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, and happy for people to message it through, but I'm pretty sure that Channel 9 still does the stream. It's just changed slightly with the commentators and things for the commentary. So, so there's one step, right? You've got your biggest game of the year and you don't even put it in high definition in 2024. It was like I was sitting there back with my dad on the couch back when I was still at school watching the friggin' footy on the big box fucking TVs. Like, that's just ridiculous. Then to take another step forward with that, from that is to, as you said, we should be seeing the same stream that the bunker is seeing as they are making the decision. Take away the comments. Take away the commentary of the bunker and what the bunker says. Take that away and just show us and let the commentators comment what they see, and don't let us see what the bunker says. But hear what the bunker says. But we should bloody well see it. And what's even more pathetic about that was that fucking Ainsley had to pull the media in straight after the game and go, here's what that person saw. Everybody talk about this. That's ridiculous, man. Like, that really gets fire in my belly. That's just absolutely ridiculous. Now, do you want to talk about the incident, or we just talk? Sure. Yeah. So, the other angle. So we all saw that angle, and that's what Ainsley, and apparently that's what Ainsley actually was the only angle, the one behind that shows the arm and the boot and all that sort of stuff. And that's all he showed to the media after the game when he pulled them in. He didn't show them any other side. He didn't show the front on. He didn't show the side ons at all. He just showed them that. And we saw an arm, and you can see the angle, and that's what it shows. But there is another angle to the side that clearly shows the ball touches grass. It clearly shows that. Okay. So, but he didn't show that. And it's streamed everywhere and everyone can see it. But right, the ball touches the ground. It's nothing more than angles and what you want to believe and to what's actually factual. So if you want to believe that it didn't go for the try, you're going to see the one that Ainsley showed Annesley, sorry, that showed in the media to everybody, and that's what you're going to believe. You're going to take that as is, right? That's as simple as that, right? I saw that. That's what I can see. I can see an arm under the ball and a foot there, but I'm also smart enough to go, well, here's another angle, and it shows there. Like, to me, that's the end of it. So the try is a no try. They went back. The game's over. It's done and dusted. It can't be changed now. What extra pisses me off about this is that please go. Can you tell me how many times Annesley or Ains, whatever, I'm sick of his name, has actually over the year gone and said, yeah, sorry, mate. Sorry, guys, we made a mistake.
Once, twice at most.
That's pathetic. Because video evidence has shown time and time again that there's been mistakes. Yet he sits there and he backs himself and he backs his refs and he backs everything till he makes himself look stupid. Now, that's every sport doesn't do that, right? NBL, after the game, goes back and reviews things and says, oh, we actually missed this foul. We did this, we did this. And players and coaches and fans sit there and go, you know what? Yeah, I'm pissed off about it, but good. Thank you. Thank you for owning up to it. Just don't make that mistake again. And generally it sort of doesn't. Something else happens. AFL does the same thing. Yep, we should have done this. No, we shouldn't have paid that, blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, that's clearly, based off what we saw, that's wrong. We got it wrong. We'll review that. We're going to learn from that. NBA, NFL, constantly comes up and says we made these mistakes. But the NRL is so stubborn and so steadfast on the fact that they can never be faultless, they can never be wrong, that they don't go out and say, no, sorry, we stuffed up. Like, what's wrong with that? That pisses me off even more.
Yeah, I can definitely hear the frustration and understand the frustration as well. I think everyone can. And it's because it was such a close game as well. You don't want to see those sorts of 50-50s that you feel like you can decide a game happen and potentially be wrong. But I think more for me, it's just that frustration. We're just not using the technology exactly the way we should be using it. We should be. The amount of money we're spending on it, we need to keep these fans involved. We need to keep them up to date with everything. And I just feel like on the grander stage, once again, and it's been in the news all year about constant errors, the bunkers in the news, and basically taking center stage when there's so many other storylines here that we're going to be talking about that I believe should be taking center stage, like 4 in a row. That is ridiculous. In a salary cap era, this Penrith Panthers side is absolutely phenomenal. This club is ridiculous. Like what they're doing at the moment, and they'll go in one of the favourites next year, and rightly so. It's just so scary what they're doing, and that should be just planted everywhere. 4-peat, and it's not. And that's for me as a fan and as I guess someone that runs a page and stuff. That's disappointing because it's taking away from it. And we knew everyone has been talking about this all year with this bunker and the officiating. It hasn't been up to scratch all year. And now here we are spending 24 minutes almost on a podcast talking about it. It's just disgusting. And there needs to be a serious clean out on in the off season, and things need to change because it's at that point now where it's going to seriously throw people away. Let's talk about the game.
They have to take. Sorry, Ben, but they have to. They have to take a step back when they do that and build the trust, build the respect in the game and within the fans by going and admitting at times we stuffed up, and that's okay. As a fan, as I can tell you now, as a Storm fan, if Annesley come up to me in today, 24 hours down the track and said, look, that should have been a try, I'd be pissed, right? I'd be pissed. But I'd be like, well, it is what it is. I can't change that. I'm not going to change that. But it doesn't happen. And that's what they need to do. They need to build respect. They need to find that way to build honesty, trustworthiness, and respect. Because at the moment, people are just taking the piss out of them. And they continue to keep doing it themselves. There's multiple moments in that game of bunker errors that were blatantly missed or wrong. Multiple moments, and on both sides, there were moments where the Storm stuffed up too, and it was missed. Like it's just, it's dumbfounding that we're in October the 6th, now the 7th, 2024, and this is the rubbish that they continue to put up.
Yeah,
let's talk game.
I want to talk about the game now. Let's give some props to and some credit to some of these players and both teams that do deserve it. First of all, both have had a great year. We're going to do our season reviews for each individual team over the next few weeks. You'll see that. We'll get stuck into the individual teams. But for last night, obviously Liam Martin got the Clive Churchill medal. He was massive last night. He just continues to prove he's that big game player. And it's funny because I know last night he started to get that respect he deserves, but even up until last night, I feel like he still didn't have that the elite sort of back rower. Like there was always talk about Angus Crichton, and rightly so, he's been huge this year. Just always feels like in a way Liam Martin slides under the radar, but then in these big games like Origins and Grand Finals, Test matches, he always is in the thick of it. He's always up there with one of the best players in the game. And again, last night, he came up with a brilliant try, set another brilliant try up, effort upon effort upon effort. This guy is a machine.
Yeah, like I'm a bit indifferent with Liam Martin. Like I said to him, I said in the preview that, you know, he was another sort of role player that comes off the bench. And I think he plays that position for the Penrith Panthers really, really well. And he's that perfect complementary guy. And when you want someone to just be a meathead, just be fearful, like Liam Martin's your man, right? But last night was different. Last night was the different Liam Martin to what I've seen and known. Like, there were some serious effort plays that he had. Like that one that he took the kick off Coates, I think it was off Coates, where he just ran head up, running into him, got the ball, bang, collision. He grabs it, lands, takes a couple of steps, dishes it off, try. Like that's not Liam Martin, right? That's not the Liam Martin that I've seen and known. Like that's freakish skills, and that was gold. See, Liam Martin had an amazing game last night, but his game was built off moments, and huge, big moments. He had 16 runs. He had 13 hit ups. He only got 92 meters. It wasn't a huge statistic wise game for him. One try. He doesn't have a try assist. I can see here in the stats, but and he only got 2 tackle busts and a line break. So statistically,
I consider that try his try assist. When he got it off Coates, I consider that a try assist.
Yeah, but statistically, that's right. Yeah, but statistically, it doesn't show up. So it's those moments in time it's those moments in the game where he was just huge. Laid a couple of big tackles that needed to, a couple of big runs to break off. The try was huge. It was just a really good game, and I loved it. I said straight after the game in our sort of Facebook group, but I said, I love the fact that a player like that got the player of the game. So often it's the playmakers, it's the guys it's the guys kicking the most points. It's, all of that sort of, flashiness, that gets that gets Dally M's, that gets the Clive Churchill, all of that sort of stuff. I just loved that this year was so different with a big forward like that. I love that, and well deserved too, because he's such a good fella. He's scary. He's a bloody scary man, but he's a good dude.
And you could tell how much it meant to him as well, because he almost broke down a number of times going up to get that medal. You could just tell that this one was special to him, and I think at the back of mind, he knew how good of a game that was by him. I just want to talk about a moment where you just spoke about that try where he went up, basically caught the ball in the air off Coates, and then I could not believe my eyes, because I've watched you try a number of times again today and just to get some notes on that ready for tonight. I could not believe my eyes when I seen Moses Leota there throwing that final pass to Alamotti to score in the corner. There is not a single prop forward in this competition who would be in that position. They will take the time to go, you know what, backs, go and do your job, get up there. I'll be up there and I'll form the line and take that first tackle or something off that first sort of play the ball. Not Moses Leota. He was there. He's quick on his feet. That skill to pass the ball in a pressure moment, knowing it could well lead to a try. Huge credit to him, because he's always been for mine the forgotten guy for forward member of this Panthers pack, and I'm glad he had a moment like that last night. And he was consistent for mine. He kept taking it up, taking the hit, but to be involved with that moment, just sums him up as a player. And I think he's improved so much over these. If you go back and look at it, he started that first one that they won on the bench, and now look at him. He's starting. He's a key figure in this Panthers pack. He was part of the Bruce brothers that have laid out so many prop forwards over their time. But I just want to give a quick shout out to that because that's a huge play. And as I said, there's not many prop forwards out there, if any, that would have been there in that moment.
No. No, I can't think of any off the top of my head now. And it'd be nice to actually sit down and look at the list and think if there was. But off the top of my head, no, I don't think there is. And again, though, like it's that moment in time. He only played 34 minutes. He still got himself 26 tackles. Like he was just 27 tackles, but he had that big moment, 7 hit ups. He only got 75 meters. So that's, just under 10 meters of hit up in 34 minutes. Like he just had that moment in time. Dog shot when he hit Harry Grant in the back, but we'll look past that one. That one got missed, but well deserved too. And we called it, but the game, what we called it, the preview was not the way we thought the game would go. We really thought it would be about the middle forwards and the way it was run through that. It didn't happen like that. And so, they had to have those moments where a Martin, where a Leota had to do those little things to sort of have impact. And it was just the way that the game played. Well deserved. He was good for his time on the field.
Yeah. One player that I think last night suited down to a T, and he really excelled. I don't think he was the best player on the field, but he was very close to it. Was Isaiah Yeo. And we've spoken about Isaiah Yeo so many times in the past and how good he is in his Penrith system. He just suits everything down to a T, and everything that Penrith do is off the back of him. And that was case in point last night. Go back and watch that game again. See how important and how vital Isaiah Yeo is. That game became a huge grind, as we've already explained. First player I think about when I think about a grinding sort of type of game that I want to make sure helps my halves, Isaiah Yeo, come on down. And he did exactly that. Knew when to run the ball, knew when to pass it. Was up in their faces in defense. He was huge, I thought. And again, wasn't one of those games where he did it by like 110 Supercoach points or something, as we normally talk. But he was I just felt like he was so crucial, and that game just suited him.
Oh, perfectly, didn't it? And it was I'm so glad you mentioned him because I've read a lot in the last 24 hours of reviews and things, and I haven't heard a lot of Yeo. And I actually disagree with the quietness and silence around that because I thought he was top 3 in that game. Yeah. Just his experience and ability just to play the right play at the right time, take the right run, do the right pass at the right place, which the right side. Like it was a bit of a silly sentence that I just said there, but it's so fitting for what Yeo played like last night, and quietly he got himself 233 meters, like of 16 hit ups, 24 runs. Like that's so quiet. You don't expect that in such a defensive minded game, which is the way it was officiated and how it ended up playing. Like he still got 233 meters for a bloody 13 for a lock. Like that's incredible. And he was really good. The other side of it too, with what he did, was he had 46 tackles. So like not only was it, so he had to do all that running as well as, man down the fort for defense. And that's just shows an incredible tank that he's got to do that in 80 minutes over and over and over and over again.
That's why for me as well. I know Liam Martin was great, and he did deserve it 100%. But with the way that game was and the style of game it was, I would not have been shocked or disappointed if Isaiah Yeo was in fact the club Churchill medalist last night. Because if it wasn't for him, I don't know if Penrith go and win it. Like I'll say it that much. I think he was that important to Penrith last night with what he was doing. And I know they still had the Clearys, they had the Edwards, they had everyone else out there, but go back and just watch how crucial he is and how much he helped last night. He was massive. And one last guy I wanted to give credit for Penrith, Brian Toe. I know he went off early and he was out. I think he missed out in the last 25 minutes, but his stats were still pretty ridiculous, pretty phenomenal. he just does not. He's head and shoulders for mine the best winger in the competition, and it's not necessarily the flashy stuff, but the work he gets through on a week-to-week basis. Goodness me, up your Diet Cokes from 6 to 10 if you need to, brother, because whatever you're doing is completely working for you. Whether that's true or not, I still don't know to this second, but if it is, it's working for you. Don't stop it.
He's pretty game
if he played 80 minutes, he would have been right up there for Clive. Right up there for Clive.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Now he doesn't get it because he didn't play the 23 extra minutes. But 213 meters in 57 is just stupid. Off 22 runs, that's just stupid, man. 5 tackle busts, but the thing that's even more impressive is he had 87 post contact meters. So that's just so impressive. Yeah, he was huge. I'd argue him as the best winger in the competition, but it's a hard one to argue against too. He is a monster and he's perfect, but he's perfect for that system. He's a player that I would love to see on I'd love him on the Storm, but I wouldn't love to see, based off what I think of him as a player, I wouldn't like him on the Storm. I'd like to see him on, say, a Sharks team or even the Titans with the way that they play. Manly. I'd love to see him on those sort of quicker, spread the ball more, play through the edges a lot more. Penrith don't do that. So Brian To'o fits that role perfectly for them. I'd love to see him on those sorts of teams to see what he would do. He'd get freaking 350 meters if he was playing on a team that had more, that wasn't so structured and had so much more freedom. He'd literally be the only one. He'd be the first person in history to average that much. Yeah, he's a beast. But God, he's so strong. It's incredible. His legs are like bloody tree trunks. He's just so strong. He's not your atypical winger, and he's bloody good for it.
I put a post up this afternoon or tonight about Paul Alamotti, and I just want to. No one predicted. I think we all predicted he'd be a handy signing because went there not much money, and yeah, they can probably do with him and build him up into some sort of player, and he could play like some sort of role. Last night, he did more than play a role. He was really, really good for Penrith. There's a number of people out there who think this game didn't have many stars. It didn't have that sort of X factor. But what it had players that were playing out of their skin and had little moments of their own. And Paul, I think Alamotti did that. He went from centre to wing, which is not easy, up against two of the better wingers in the comp as well. Under high ball, he was taking them. There was not many, he was just so up for doing work. And I just think that was pretty noble of him. And to Penrith to get one of those players, bring him over, work with him. He was up for the work. It just showed last year he was battling with a dog side that was going they were busted. They weren't playing well at all. And I know they've got a gun backline now as it is the Bulldogs, so it's hard to, in a way, to see where he'd fit in back in that that team. But what a signing! He really has been a great signing, and another, for mine, a really good player last night.
Yeah, it's an interesting call. It's worked out to be after what he put on as a great signing. He's developed in nicely into a team with clearly a coach. That has the nous for developing players and finding it, just like what the Storm and Bellamy is very much so known for. And they've been able to recycle someone and do a really good job with it. He was huge last night. I agree. 6 tackle busts and a line break off his 11 runs. He's great. He was in the right place with a wicked try finish. That was against 2 good defenders with guys around him. That was a really good finish. So he's got to get credit for that. And he just played that role perfectly and he held that edge really nicely. And it was really hard for the Storm to get through him, and because of the way he was, and just that. The other thing too with him is that he's not slender. He's big and he's enforcing, and you look at him and he's a barrier. He's a brick wall for an edge. Yeah. And I like that with him. And yeah, he was good.
Very much so. The last sort of point I'll talk about with this one, first of all, that Taruva try that the Penrith Panthers scored, I think that little move, that backline sort of play that they did, that got me going. As a rugby league fan, I really enjoyed watching that. I've got to admit that was just a very sexy move, if I can say it that way. It got me. It did get me. And that leads me to my last point, the halves for Penrith. And
I'm glad you go here.
Do I think what was that?
I'm glad you're going here. Yep.
Do I think it was their best game of all time? No, I don't. What impressed me the most out of this game was Cleary was very busy. Cleary played both sides of the field, which he has learned to do a lot more in recent times, but it hasn't always been his go-to, and especially carrying that shoulder injury, I thought he would have maybe more so wanted to protect it and just let Luai do a lot of that run around and all, but he did not back down from any of that, which was really, really impressive to see. Luai, for mine, I gave him credit last week. He has improved so much as a player. He became that player to me last night that they worked so well together in tandem. He kind of done a lot more of that, what he learned while Cleary was out. But this time he got to do it while Cleary was there. Like that play for Martin to score, they went to Luai, who straight away knew what was happening on the other side of the field, threw the cutout over to Cleary that isolated Munster. And unfortunately, Munster missed a pretty crucial tackle that ended up being on Martin, which we'll touch on. But I was just really impressed with the fact that they both, like, if I was to give them ratings, they're probably getting sevens. Like, I didn't think they were out of this well with what we know from them, but they just worked so well together. It was a really team effort for them too, and they didn't feel the need to be that macho guy, that macho playmaker. They knew what they were doing, and it just seemed to work for him perfectly. And Isaiah is probably a huge thank you and help for him, but I thought they were huge.
Yeah, I thought they were good. I think 7's half. I'd give them 7.5 now. I'd give them at least a 9. I'd give them a 9. I reckon they would, if I gave them a rating. They played the game the way it was officiated, a way the teams had to play. And for that, you have to adjust your rating system for it, in my opinion. Not saying you're wrong, though. But, yeah, just...
I'll give them together a 9, but individually a 7.
You have to. To me, you have to adjust the way that you give that the props and kudos to them. They both together they had 46 runs as halves, like 29 from Cleary and 17 from Luai. Like that's huge, and that's not very like them. You know that they had to play that game in a very different way to what they want to. And whilst the game played out the way Penrith love it, the two of them had to be different. You know, the fact is, Cleary running 29 times for 212 meters on a shoulder that he had, and you could clearly see that when he got hit or when he put it out to try and tackle and you had to extend, he sort of stopped. You know, he grabbed it. He was sore. It hurt, right? But to still do that is just ridiculous. 31 tackles for Cleary too. So it's 31 for your halfback. That's really good. Luai with 17 runs and 137. There's something about Luai. Like Luai's definitely a younger Munster. I think there's only 4 or 5 years difference, but he's so much like a Munster, but with such like Munster's got the body strength. So Munster will want to tippy toe around and try and balk you and fake you and take a step here and there and twist and do all that. But then he'll palm you off and give you a forearm and say no. And then that's how he breaks through. Luai last night was like he was like a controlled ice hockey player. Like it was just amazing watching his feet literally move and watching the Storm, who are very good defensive players across the board, fall over or fall to the side or get faked out or do it. Like Luai was just, yeah, it was so. After watching him yesterday, I hate him even more. Right, he's such a flog, right? He's just so lippy and all that, and he needs to be, and that's what they love about him, and so he should be because he's got the arrogance he's allowed to have. But God, he was good, and I appreciate what he did last night. and just how at times he made us look silly in the defensive end. He really did make us look silly in moments in time. There, I reckon you could go back a couple of times and see a couple of boys sitting on the ground being crossed over, like going, "Oh, this would be a highlight reel for the memes." Like he made them look like that. It was so good to watch those two play in a very different way. And adapt. And that's what I loved about it. You know, we talk about Penrith being such a systematic team, but yet they were so adaptable in the moment, and they adapted better than anyone else on the ground. And I loved it.
Now, let's go over to your Storm boys, which you may or may not want to talk about, depending on where we go and how we discuss these players. But first of all, we may as well start where we just finished there, the halves. I want to know your thoughts around the game of your halves, Jerome Hughes and Cameron Munster. What were you thinking, and how were you about that as a fan?
So I know you said at the start of the podcast you don't buy into the worst game of Hughes, and you don't want to buy into that. It's a grand final and blah 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 blah. And yet, I agree. Defensively, was pretty much a good telling sign as to why Hughes played like he was, because he came up against the defensive juggernaut of Penrith. But Hughes is the Dally M winner. Like, he needed to be better, and he wasn't. And I think solely because of the way Penrith played. But he needed to really step up, and he wasn't. Like I even said to my wife, I was laying in bed last night with her, we were talking about it, and I even said, I don't really remember Hughes doing anything in that game. Like, I don't actually remember a run, or I remember one, and I even went, oh my God, Hughes is here. Like, that was a good run. Hughes is up. And I think it was early in the second half. And then I kind of never saw him. Like, I didn't notice it. So, I think he sort of disappeared. My wondering behind that was, I think Munster, he did. He adamantly said that wasn't his best game, and he can play better and all that sort of stuff. But I think Hughes, unfortunately, he took a backward step where he really shouldn't have. And I gave him real big props in the preview that, the spine for the Storm, one of the things they can do is, if they're watching Grant take over, they'll take a step back. If they're watching Munster take over, they'll take a step back. Unfortunately, no one was really taking over, but Hughes took a step back, and I think he got a bit overruled. And I feel like he played like he was a bit overruled in that. I think it was easily Hughes' worst game for the year. Statistics sort of proves that too. He didn't have the impact. He didn't have the run, and unfortunately that led to his partner in crime in Katoa, who was good. He had moments, especially defensive moments, but again, like, he sort of had to disappear a little bit, and you watched a lot of the Munster Blore sort of play that happened. But So I think they were mediocre at best, but that was kind of the way they needed.
It's not that I don't want to bag it. Like, obviously, a bad performance, I'm not going to protect him or anything. Like, warranted. He played a bad game. Potentially, his own fans are now saying that it was probably his worst game of the year. What I want it sort of meant by that is, I want to also give credit to the defensive displays sometimes, and I feel like that gets lost a lot. People are quick to go, oh, that guy was quiet, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, okay, he was. But let's also look at why. Let's look at the edges that they shut him down straight away. That was a really good game plan, obviously installed by the Penrith Panthers. And I don't know why we're shocked by it anymore. They do it time and time again on the biggest stage, and they do it against the best players in the competition on a weekly basis. Like, this is them. And it was just a welcome, I guess, to the big stage in a way, which is very weird to say because it's the Melbourne Storm. But when you look a bit deeper, it's quite a young team. I know there's a lot of them playing rep footy and have done so now for a while. Grand finals, I feel like we got to see that last night, is also a bit of a different beast. And it's a huge week. Like, they've got events all the time. You fit in Dally M's as well. Jerome obviously got his Dally M medal on the week, during the week. Not sure if that maybe wasn't the best lead in to a game. It was just so different to what they're probably used to doing down in Melbourne, bunkering down, flying up probably the day before, and just really hitting a Sydney team, and off they go with the 2 points. It was probably a bit different for them, and they'll learn from it. No doubt about it, they'll learn from it. I guess for me, I'm a bit disappointed more so in Munster than I am Hughes, because Hughes hasn't really been there before in that sort of situation where Munster has. And I remember him saying during the week he wanted to make sure he made this game his grand final. He was there with the big three, and this was his first one to really come out and display that. And I think he may have had like one or two like decent moments, but overall, it didn't seem like the Munster from last week, where I know they were much more on the front foot against the Roosters, but he looked hungry. He looked like he wanted to own that game, where last night it was kind of in a way, and I know this would not have been his mindset at all, so don't quote me on it. It felt like he sort of said, oh, crap, early on, Penrith are too strong here. Like, this isn't the Roosters. I kind of don't know what to do anymore. I'm a bit lost, but obviously we know how ultra competitive he is. It just felt like, to me, it was disappointing that he's the senior head now, I feel like, in that team, especially the spine. And I was just waiting to see a bit more. I don't know if I'm being too harsh there, Trav. I know you watch their games very closely. You've seen Munster. I know he's come back from – he shouldn't have even been playing, to be honest. He's come back very well. But when we're comparing like last week into this week and just a different sort of game styles, which we can't really do, it just felt like Munster was just off.
I certainly feel the same. I think I said that just before, that I think that he tried to do too much. I think he felt like behind the scenes, well, not behind the scenes, but behind him, Hughes wasn't having the game that we expect from him. Pappenhausen wasn't good. I thought Harry Grant played probably one of our best. He was probably our second best player. I thought the way that he played out of the play of the ball, his tackling, his offensive prowess. I mean, he got a try. I thought Harry Grant was good. But there was only so much that Harry can do in that defensive game as a hooker. And I feel like Munster tried to do too much. I even said, whilst I was watching, I think he's playing too much out the side, giving the ball to Blore, and just over and over again, it just happened too often. And I think that was a big cause as to how and the way it was played. But you're right, and I've said this many, many times, we constantly try to look for the storylines of games, and so we go, was it this team dominating, or was it because they died in the ass kind of thing, instead of actually looking at it and going, well, let's give kudos where the kudos is deserved. Why did they play like that? Which is exactly what you said. They've played like this because that's the way Penrith made them play, right? And they played like this because of the officiating as well, but that's the way Penrith made them play. So that's what they did. They couldn't adjust to that. They couldn't have it. And this is why I said to you, it was really important that, the officiating doesn't wreck it, because those moments in times that can change that weren't allowed. And so they couldn't. And Penrith just went, yep, lick my lips. Here we go. This is exactly what we want. And we'll just keep doing it. We'll just keep going, because the moments in time are not fixing and changing that momentum. Like, you could see, like, after that try that Howarth was disallowed, you saw that defensive end, like that defensive set by the Storm was really good. And it felt like we kind of thought, all right, bugger this. Like, we've just been shafted. Let's step up a little bit. They did one defensive set. They then get the ball. And the way that the Penrith just defended that just shut it down, like, boom, just like that. And it just stopped. Like, it was, they were just incredible the way that they defended. And we were bloody good defensively too, but just the way that they were. And that's where Munster was. And that's why I think Munster was. And I'm even more disappointed because the story came out last week about how much money he gave up to not go to the Dolphins, and that he wanted to win premierships. And, it was after that Penrith game where he's literally stood up and said, "No, I need to stay." Blah 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 blah, and then kind of played like that. That was disappointing to me. But yeah.
You mentioned Harry Grant. Obviously, I agree with you. I thought he was really good for the Storm, and that try, I reckon he would have done a lot of video in the lead up to this, and probably said to himself, "I'm probably not going to get many chances, if any, to go from dummy half, because Penrith are that good defensively." Credit to him. He picked the moment perfectly, got Penrith on the back foot, had basically both markers out of the ruck, just not there at all, and then getting back on side. And it was a brilliant try. It was a very smart try, and I thought he was brilliant. My my Storm player of the game. Crazy, I think that I'm saying this, but Xavier Coates, I thought he was huge. It was a very, I don't know if it's because I haven't watched his game as close as probably you have, and you're going to probably shut me down after I say this, but it felt very un-Xavier Coates-like, this game, because it felt like he channeled To'o in a way and knew that he was up against sort of To'o and knew what To'o was going to bring. And we sort of said it last week and made the point that we know that the Penrith back three are going to work so hard. Will the Storm back three back that up and go, you know what, challenge accepted, let's do the same thing? And in a way, I thought Coates said, give it to me. I'll do the whole bloody thing on my own. And he basically did. Like, he was huge. That was a Coates performance. I rate right up there in terms of not just him as a winger now in the game, but just performance-wise. Like, that was a mighty performance.
I 100% agree with you. He was my number one. I actually had Xavier Coates in the top three across the board of player of the game. He was immense. Like, and he played really well. What you just saw there, Joel, was it looked to me like that's a healthy Xavier Coates. Now, when Xavier Coates can stay healthy, Xavier Coates is a monster. And probably, in my opinion, the best winger in the comp when he's healthy. Now, unfortunately, the last couple of years, he's been on and off the field. The hamstrings have been horrible for him at the moment. But what he did last night was huge. What you probably didn't see from Coates, which was because of the way that Munster and Hughes and our middles played through because of the defense that Penrith put up, was we didn't see the flashiness that Xavier Coates can bring, right? So the thing that Xavier Coates, his amazing try finishes, like his ridiculous athletic skills that he's got, his ability to compete for the high ball, win it, and in the air decide what he's going to do and make those passes and change games like that, because he couldn't. So what I really liked about what Xavier Coates did last night was Xavier Coates went, well, this is not happening, and this is what's basically happened all year. How do I affect this game in another way? And I'd really like to see how he adapted to that. Like, the 20 runs I think is just fantastic for a winger. And a lot of those runs weren't off kicks. Like, a lot of those runs were from getting the ball, wanting to be in position, getting those middle runs. He had that big one up the wing, which was really good that he got, which showed his fleet of foot and his skill. Pappenhausen tried to run with him, and that was a really key moment. That was defended really well, but that just showed his nous of what he did to try and affect that game. And I really like that. And I think he's got the form ready to go. I think he's just been selected for the Australian team. So I think we're all about to watch in the Australian team, watch Xavier Coates, if he's picked on the ground, but really dominate that international series. And I think he's ready and raring next year. And hopefully he stays fit, because if he does, we've been witness last night to what he can do when the game's not going his favor, but he can still affect games.
100%. It was a great performance. If you had a Penrith Panthers jersey on, I reckon he probably gets the club jersey. I'll say that much. I thought he was that good. Final thoughts around this game. And look, I don't want people messaging us. We'll get back into a proper team review type situation where we'll go more about both teams over the next few weeks. So we're not skipping over anything. We're just that's sort of it. I just want to quickly mention this. As I said, the 4-peat Penrith, congratulations for once again showing to everyone that you are the best team. And this one, you did it when you were doubted by probably more than ever before. And even the odds, they didn't have you as favourites, which you look back on now in hindsight and you think, how crazy not to have the 3-peat going on 4-peat Penrith Panthers as favourites. That's how good this Storm side was going this year. You proved to everyone just what an organisation you are. And I think now it's spoken with utter jealousy that every opposition fan hates you because of how good you are and just you're achieving what none of us can. And we want our clubs to push, and we want our teams and that's just push themselves to this greatness, because we know now it's harder than ever to win a competition because you've raised the bar that high it's almost impossible to grab, and it's going to take teams years to get anywhere near you guys. And I know you keep losing players, and we'll talk about it in the thing, whether this is the time or whatever. Still not ready to say it's done. Still scared as ever to look at the draw next year when it comes out and see my team against Penrith if it's going to be twice. And what a champion outfit. 4 in a row in a salary cap era is just, I thought it was unheard of. I did not think ever I would ever post or I'd ever talk about a team winning 4 in a row in a salary cap era. So Penrith, well done. Hope your fans, everyone enjoys this moment, because it deserves to be celebrated. It deserves to be celebrated for weeks, months. Rub it in. Like, you deserve it, honestly. It's going to be tough. It's going to be annoying, but you do deserve it. Trav, any final thoughts?
Yeah. I'm still a bit emotional about it. I'm pretty gutted about it all still. Talking about it in a review like this has only brought things up again. It is what it is. So I probably don't appreciate the 4-peat as much as I will over the next week or so, and as we start to do reviews and things. Winning 2 in a row is hard. Roosters did that. They won 2 in a row. Winning 3 in a row is near impossible. Winning 4 in a row is now not impossible, but we used to be.
That sounds stupid.
It's just, yeah, it's not fair, right? It's just not fair. And you're right. Like, you know, everyone during the week goes, oh, what a boring grand final, Penrith, Storm, blah, 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 blah. And credit to where it's due. The Storm are just as powerful an organisation as what Penrith have. We just don't have that 4-peat to prove it, right? But we've been thereabouts in the same period of time. You've just come against that juggernaut. But everyone needs to sit down and actually go, what are they doing? What are these teams doing? Like, how are they doing it? Because let's go through the list quickly of who these guys have lost. Kikau, Burton, Coruscant, Crichton. They're about name and the rest of them. Like, it's just, you know, and then you look at the Storm and Capewell, yeah, true. Yeah. And then you look at the Storm and look at what they've had to lose and continue to keep losing. Yet they continue to keep losing grand finals, or not losing, but getting into grand finals or being thereabouts year in, year out. So unfortunately, this is the Australia society, and I've read some big articles about this and what pisses a lot of commentators. Mark Howard has a podcast. He's an AFL commentator and a cricket commentator, and he's got his own little podcast on Spotify, and he talks about how much the Australian sports fan pisses him off about our mentality, particularly around negativity. And that we, you know, the tall poppy syndrome and stuff like that we have as a society, we don't appreciate what we can see in front of us and what greatness is, and we want to bring it down instead of propping it up. I'll do that more with the Penrith. I certainly appreciate what they've done, but I'll definitely do it more in the next few weeks. But yeah, in terms of like what's even more appreciative about that 4-peat that I've got to navigate is just the dominance and the way that they did it last night. You know, the weight of possession, you know, the amount of runs. They had 64 more runs than us. Like, they had 20 more tackle breaks than us. They had 10 more offloads than us. They had less errors than us. Like, you know, just the way they went about it. And yet we can talk about how the Storm were pretty good and the Storm defensively were really good. Just the way they went about it last night, it was, just building and building and building. And then when it came to the moment, they just stood up. It was just, freaking amazing. Well done. And I'd love to I'm eager to see what happens next year with the loss of Fisher Harris, Luai, Taruva, and how they replace that and what they do. Let's not forget that they've got this dude named Sorensen sitting on the bench who's looking for a spot to come back on the team, and he's pretty bloody good. You know, so it'll be very, very interesting. But then they brought in Talangi for next year, so yeah, I mean, we're getting into the reviews and stuff, but it's just immense. Now. It's immense what they've done and how they've been able to do it. And as I said, I've said it a couple of times, I'll appreciate it more in the next few weeks.
That is it. It might not have been a grand final that we wanted. It might not have been one of those for the ages. Who knows? But it was a tough one. It was a gritty one, and it was a grand final that we had both of the best teams in the competition for 2024. We went at it, and it was the Penrith Panthers that prevailed. So well done to the Penrith Panthers. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, add a few comments in. Let us know your thoughts around the game, the officiating, the teams, Penrith, and how much you respect that 4-peat. And get in early. Let us know if you think they can go and make it 5 in a row. High five indeed. Thank you, guys. Hope you enjoy your off-season. As I said, we won't be having an off-season here. We'll continue to bring you out the player interviews. We'll have a few season reviews and stuff coming out shortly as well. The content will keep coming. I'll keep posting a few a day. Might not be as much as normal, but definitely have a fair bit of content still coming, and we'll try and make it a bit fun for you guys as well. So hit that unsubscribe button. Keep subscribing. Keep liking. You'll appreciate everything that's coming. Thanks, guys.